welcome everybody to the Rust Primitive Weaponry tier list. Okay? Now, as a disclaimer, you're gonna have your own opinions and your own values and your own experiences with each of these finely crafted pixels of terror, right? I appreciate that, and I'm gonna ignore it mostly, right? So, we're gonna start our primitive tier list with a fan favorite, okay? The Bone Club. Right, the Bone Club. Now, I know what maybe you're thinking. You're thinking it's a weapon that absolutely everybody uses all the time, and is super effective. Well, you're wrong. It's a weapon that nobody ever can use, but it is good for hitting trees and rocks. But that's not what this is about. The Bone Club, in its own right, is a terrifying device. And what leads to its terrifying ability is, if somebody sees you holding a bone club, there's two ways that it goes. One is that you're a noob who has no experience of what's going on in the game, or the second is you're an absolute giga chad who can kill anything with anyone with anything. So in its own right, and this sets the standard for how we're going to be going with this primitive list, right? Bone Club is S tier. Why? I hear you saying, screaming, hitting your screen. Why? It's S tier because it's unpredictable, and it can strike fear into the hearts of your enemies. With its fast hit rate, if you're good at tracking, you can do a fair amount of damage in a short amount of time. For nakeds, it's the perfect murdering tool. If somebody sees you running at them with a bone club, yeah, they're not going to take you seriously. They're just not. But if you use that to your ability and you duck and weave and you start getting your hits in, the panic that is going to set in when they realize that they are potentially going to lose to a bone club is way better than any 300-meter AK spray. Next, we're moving on to stone tools, like I said. So stone tools, I put these at a B because they're not stupid heavy hitters. They're not. They're useful, but we've got to ignore the farming capabilities, right? Actually, because of that, I'm putting them further down. C. They're useful, and they're misleading because people will pick a fight with you. And I've won a lot of fights using stone tools, more so than spears, I would say. Metal tools, again, I would put them in the same setting, right? They're C. They're good. They do more damage than these, but at that point, you've moved on to bigger and better things. So now we're going for the mace. You're saying middle? Yeah, okay, so around the middle. We got A and B, so like that sort of thing. Higher tier because 2 hitting road signs and effective versus nakeds. So, I agree with you in certain stances, Ableton, but we cannot take the farming signs, even though that is cracked. And if you didn't know that, chat, it's so well worth knowing. With a mace, you could take a road sign down in 2 hits. Crazy. Fastest way of farming road signs. Can't do it outpost, but you can do it all around. Good damage, good hit time, 1 taps barrels, A tier. It is a good all-rounder, okay? I've put it in an A, and the main thing that has swayed me into an A rather than the other sides is the noise it makes. When you hit a naked in the face and you hear that twang noise, oh my god, the endorphin release. Like, I'm shaking. Like, it's not even like exhilarating. It just makes me happy. It feels like I'm watching a slapstick cartoon from my childhood. We're going to go for Machete, a personal favorite of mine. Okay. But I can't take the fact that it's a good eco raiding weapon into account. Doesn't really make sense because we're not talking about attacking buildings, talking about attacking people. But it does have a very good sort of attack speed to it. And it does a fair amount of damage. I'll go B tier. No, do you know what? We're playing it cool. I'm going C tier. It is a good weapon. It makes a good sound when you hit him. It actually sounds like you're cutting into him. That's pretty exciting. Hey, it doesn't matter, dude. No wrong answers. Why is the rock in there? Well, everybody spawns on the beach with a rock. What are you on about with? Come on, mate. You've played Rust before. He's saying. I mean, okay, that's a good one. I mean, I was going to save the rock till last. Okay. And just as a little reminder for the chat, we are talking about the actual rock in the game, not Dwayne. But, you know, for reference, they're both very similar. God tier. It is a weapon that you instantly have when you are born. Okay, there is another weapon like this, which we'll get to, right? But it is a weapon that everybody starts with. It is a weapon that everyone is familiar with. It is a weapon that you can literally spawn into a server and within less than 2 seconds already be engaged in a fight to the death with your rock in your hand. It's exhilarating. I think that's a stable place. It would just suck to punch rocks and trees with your bare fists. Yeah, this ain't Minecraft. Fuck off. Right, I'll tell you what. Next, let's do the bows. I'm actually gonna put this. Are you ready? S tier. Now, I know a few are gonna be like hitting the fan. We all thought it was high. Why S tier? First of all, it's its diversity. It's not ridiculously easy to get depending on popularity of the server, and it's always that way up between do you get a bag or a bow? You know, mostly go bow, die, back to the beach. So the reason it's S tier is it is, I believe, one of the weapons that offers the most diversity in terms of like its ammo range. Also, in terms of combat itself, with the tricks such as jump shots and like run shots and like the fact that you can like charge and jump up onto a ledge and then shoot people, that sort of extra level, that's different to recoil training. That is movement training. It encourages you to get to a next level in terms of your movement and your calmness in combat. And that is what makes it S tier. So let's start off with bow and arrows. We don't have to conform to other people's opinions. Everybody knows that if you see somebody using bow and arrows, the way they always go is, oh my God, they're using bow and arrows. Yeah. What that tells me about a person is they've actually managed to kill an animal. In my heart, anybody who is rocking bow and arrows is a giga chad in my mind, right? Bow and arrows. I am going to go B tier. First, middle of the ground. That's because I'm conflicted. They are good. They make you feel better in combat, which is pretty good, and still encourage mild accuracy. Like, you need to be aiming near them to hit them, but that little bit extra, that little crunch on a headshot makes you feel pretty good about yourself. It's a nice middle tier extension for combat. Personally, I don't use them enough, I don't think. More with a crossbow, I think these things are deadly. With an actual bow, the drop down still takes a different level of skill to learn. So I'm pretty happy with that. It has its pros and its cons. You could say it's newbie, but it's also tactical. So if you're taking advantages and you know where your weaknesses are, it is smart that you are adapting to that and not lying to yourself. This is combat-based tier list. I mean, I think it definitely deserves to be up there. I put it as a middle ground because it's sort of the social stigma that comes with it as well. If you have bow and arrows on you and you win, like, you kind of still lost that fight in the eyes of a lot of people. Personally, I don't give a fuck. But like, do you know what I mean? They're going to be like, oh my God, you were using bow and arrows? Moving on to the next one. Fire arrows. All right? What's everybody saying for fire arrows? So chat, I ask you, if you remove their ability to take out TCs easier than like anything else, where would you rate them then? A tier because of the damage increase, or a B tier? I'm going prim lock, chat. I'm upsetting the foundations of this very discussion. The reason I'm putting it in the prim lock, the lowest of the low. I can hate these things, right? I hate him. I hate him so much, right? You have already listed the negatives. If we take the fact that they damage TCs away, what are the benefits? Does a little bit of spread damage when you hit, not a lot, let's be honest, and that's it. So the reason I'm putting it prim locked is they make you glow like fucking fireworks night. Like literally every motherfucker in a 4 grid radius can see where you are. Even when you put it in your back and you forget that you've got one loaded in your bow on your back and you don't know that you're running around with your arsehole on fire. But they're trash, man. I'd say they're more embarrassing than bow and arrows. At least with bow and arrows, you had to kill an animal. Let's be honest, these fucking arrows are so expensive to make. And I know we're not taking like account the fact that raiding or anything, which they're trash at, apart from TCs. Who here in this chat actively goes out their way to craft fire arrows to go out fighting with? Yep, you agree. You only use them if you find them. Anyway, let's move on. We'll be on fire arrows all fucking night. HV arrows. Talk to me, chat. Where are we putting HV arrows? I put them D tier. They're pretty shit. But if you handed me one or the other and said, right, okay, you can only use one of these for a wipe. Yeah. Which one are you going to use? I'm probably going HV because I've got other ways of getting in TCs and I'm not going to want to be glowing like a motherfucker the entire wipe. Talk to me. Where does the Yoker belong? I want to hear it. Yoker is God tier. Yoker Ale God. I mean, that's Chad tier we don't even have, but that's makes sense. S plus, the only gun you can go from naked to full metal AK set. S tier. I'll explain why it's not God tier, but I am with you. I'm agreeing that it definitely deserves the chance to be up there. If you ask me how many times I've killed like a full metal AK guy with a Yoke, never. Never in my life, right? But I know it can be done. I've seen it. I watched a video with Oblivion in, and that motherfucker killed 3 people in a row with 3 separate Yokers in the space of like 20 seconds. The endorphin release from that would make me vomit. It is so cheap to make that you can load onto a server, run for 3 minutes and have a Yoker in your hand. And there is this rumor about that people say about the R glitch or whatever, so you can fire the Yoker every single time. I personally cannot do that. I can do it when Yoker raiding, but I can't do it when in combat. Maybe it's just nerves. It is discreet, all-round S-tier weapon. I think most people would agree. Not quite God tier, just from my own personal opinion, because that has fucked me more. The amount of times I've seen a death screen when I'm holding my arm and a fucking banana in my hand or whatever, it's just unreal. So where you'll put in the Nailgun chat, God tier, best prim weapon there is, God tier, C. So I ask you this, Whiff, when you're thinking of Nailgun, do you ever in your mind just think, I'm going to go out and roam Nailgun? Or is it, oh, I'm going to go and roam this and Nailgun? Or I'm going to go roam that and Nailgun? Whenever I hear the word Nailgun, I always hear it in combination with something else. But I always hear people go, oh, I love Crossy Nailgun. Oh, I love Bow Nailgun. Oh, I love Noki Yoke Nailgun. I never just hear someone say, oh yeah, I just made Nailgun. You actually have to pay scrap to make this fucking thing. It is the only weapon in the game that isn't purchased that you have to craft with scrap, right? Like, I'm pretty sure it is. Why? Weird. Like, why not just high qual and metal? Like, why not that? Why does it specifically? I find that weird. I find that it's such a unique thing about the gun, and it's not expensive. It's like 15 scrap or whatever. Basically, tier 1 custom. Yeah, 100%. Like, rapid fire. Oh, it's basically like the new prim locked M92, right? So for this, I put it A tier. Okay. Now, I know a lot of you saying God tier, S tier, but I've given them my restrictions. The fact that you have to pay scrap to craft it doesn't really make much sense to me, but I think it's A tier. It does a stupid amount of damage. It fires as fast as you can like click the trigger. A tier. Absolute banger. Satchel. Now you may think this is weird because we are talking and we are looking at this list from a purely combat perspective, right? The Satchel in combat as a thrown weapon. C, D tier, okay, it's not bad. Satchel in combat, that's an A tier for the psychological impact. Thank you very much. S tier. I honestly put the Satchel as an S tier prim weapon, right? Now, don't get me wrong, I've been a bastard. I've used like, restrictions like saying, oh, it costs 10 scrap for an Nailgun. Yeah, I know. Talk a lot of shit. But I feel that the fact that you have to have, 240 gunpowder, like a rope and then 10 cloth, like that's an expensive weapon. It is. It really fucking is. And you're not going to go out actively to use this weapon. But like Reed Spy said, if you see some guy running at you with a satchel in his hands, ready for a Barney, you know that's a guy that's got nothing left to live for. That's a guy who's unpredictable. It is a slim chance that they're going to come out of that fight, right, on top. But the fear of that the chances it could work in your favor, yeah, is astronomical. S tier, can't argue with me. Awesome. We've had Satchel. We'll go bean can. It's pretty cool. Not a lot of people use bean cans in a combat perspective. And that's why I feel it needs to be quite highly rated because of the unpredictability. I think it adds an air of challenge to it. But like you said, like Rude Spy said, nobody's going to look at a man running with a bean can and think this guy has completely lost his mind. I'm a little bit scared. Whereas if you have a satchel, that is exactly what they're going to think. So what we're talking about with the picture of the animals is people that have figured out ways to manipulate the wildlife in a way that they could be used as a weapon. A person who notices a pack of dogs coming towards them and knows the exact angles that they can run at, so the person chasing them is then intercepted by the members of the animal kingdom. I personally completely 100% fucking agree. The animals are God tier. Now, God tier it's a bit of a difficult one because we're not all to use them to your personal advantage is nigh fucking impossible, right? If you end up being like Dr. Dolittle of Rust and ended up to manipulate animals in a way to attack people, that's fucking crazy. If you're doing that shit, you terrify me. That's more scary than 2,500 hours in UKM. So animals, God tier. Revy, it's easy to find and people make plays. Okay, yeah, interesting. Very high. A lot of love for the Revy. Also sentimental value for your first real gun of the wipe. That is beautiful with. S tier. I'm telling you, it is fairly easy to get your hand on. It is the first gun of wipe. It's like a rite of passage and the possibilities are endless. Yes, you can kill a guy with an AK with a Yoke if it goes off one of the first 6 times, but with a Revy, you just got to work on your aim and you can do some serious damage. I'm telling you. Compound bow, chat, where's it going? Compound bow over Crossy. Now it's interesting. S tier, I'm torn. I'm going to put it middle of the ground. Reason. I used to rate this God tier S tier. I used to, right? And it wasn't even the fact that it wasn't the fact that they did the damage where it breaks, because I never really used to charge it that much anyway, right? That didn't bother me. What they did was they made it unblueprinted. And now it feels like I feel almost dirty having to pay to learn the blueprint of a compound bow when apparently my character understands how to make a fucking crossbow. Where's the logic in that? I think it's B tier now. I think there's just too many little things have been added. It doesn't feel as special anymore. It doesn't feel like I'm like, oh, I'm going to go get myself a compound. I don't even think about the compound bow anymore. It's weird. I feel like that negative situation where it got treated the same way as an MP5, which is unfair because the compound bow, I don't know, requires more skill than an MP5. It's better than bone arrows. It's A tier. I do correct myself. I have more love for the compound bow because of what it was and what it can do, and it still is powerful. Like, it can still one kill a Hazy, but I personally just don't feel excited to use it anymore. It's a shame. Crossy, I'm not even going to waste too much time on this one, right? Crossy, simple as S tier. Why? It is the weapon that I think I consistently use, being my prim lock self, is the weapon that I consistently use the most in the game at all times, and it feels good. It feels good in your hands. I like the recharge element, like when you're loading it, because the load time is slow, but it teaches you to get better at movement. The crossbow forces you to get better at evading and paying attention to how your enemies are shooting. In my opinion, crossbow, S tier. Absolute banger of a weapon. You can use it with different forms of arrows. If you have a hotbar full of crossbows, it feels awesome. But it's not something that most people commonly do, but it feels fucking awesome. Water pipe, what are we thinking? Where's everybody putting the water pipe? And this was going to be exciting because I know people are going to jump instantly to slugs, right? No one roams it alone. No one. It is, I mean, sometimes if you're desperate, it's all you got. Where's it going? People told me A tier, D tier, B tier, F minus from Peanut. That's fucking crazy, dude. Why are you hating on the water pipe so much? B tier, middle ground weapon. Because the water pipe, again, is cheaper than a DB, but it's not as iconic as a DB. You don't, when you think of grubs and you think of primlocks, you don't think of water pipes really. Do you know what I mean? You think DB. DB is the king of the grubs. The only thing that works from the reloading perspective is I could honestly say that I feel it is one of the most enjoyable guns to watch reload. And you can tell me wrong, and Nailgun's up there as well, actually. But like the way the water pipe reloads, it just feels nice. It doesn't feel generic. Do you know what I mean? It's a weird statement to make, but I love it. I see the water pipe as an advanced Yoker. That's pretty much it. It's a Yoker I know that is going to fire. One of the first proper guns in the game, right? It makes you feel like you can advance a bit better once you get the water pipe. That's what I love about it. DB, come on chat. What you thinking? God tier? S tier? A tier? God tier? You are damn Skippy is God tier. DB is crazy. Everybody loves and hates the DB. I feel apart from the MP5, there is no single weapon in the game that causes such a conflict of like love and hate and desperation and like a mixture of everything, right? Is like everybody loves DB. It's what you're waiting for. Like DB Revy, you're waiting to get to it because you know once you've got a DB in your hands, literally anything is possible, and way more possible than with a Yoker. Like, you know, if you're in a bush and an AK guy runs by you and you got a DB in your hands, if that motherfucker's walking away, then yeah, it ain't the DB's fault. You know, we'll do the spears. Well, we'll do normal spear and stone spear. So, normal spear. Spear is B class, A, eco rating A or S. We can't take eco rating into account as this is combat only. Normal spear is D tier because it's only good for soft siding and beach PvP. I don't know. Have you ever watched an Leonardo video? I am going A tier, right? Okay. I am way more impressed if I see you kill someone with a spear, like 2 people with good spears, than with a water pipe. Now, don't get me wrong, it doesn't mean the water pipe isn't great. The water pipe's awesome. We love it. The spear is just a pretty impressive weapon to use. Like, I'm never mad if somebody kills me with spears. I'm just not. Unless they're poking, they're the pussies. Stone spear. Made from spears that are broken. I'm glad you said that, Bubba, because that is the one crazy plus that these things have. I believe they are the only weapon in the game that can be crafted from a broken weapon, right? Which is fucking crazy. And yeah, I use them, but mostly for eco rating. S or A? S. Okay. Who's breaking spears in PvP? Exactly my point, Deadshot. So, prim locked. That's why I'm fucking burning them. I know you're screaming at me. The fact that you can craft them from broken spears, fine. But if we're not taking eco rating into account, who the fuck is killing enough nakeds with a spear that is breaking? Like, who's held onto a spear combat only long enough that it is broken? No one, I'm telling you. Flashlight is an S tier weapon, and I'm almost insulted that I forgot to put it in the list. So thank you for suggesting it and making sure that Papa realized he forgot. Because I'm telling you, flashlight is crazy. The fact that it lights up, the noise it makes, that I can't even recreate the noise. It's fucking mad. I think you only really find it in caves, right? But it does damage to a naked. Like, you can do quite a bit of damage. It's very good. It can actually clutch you up quite a lot when you're having like Oxum's fights, which is the Prim's wet dream, right? Because you can find a flashlight in the box below, wait down there, and then you got a fighting chance when you come out. I think it's awesome. It's a very unpredictable weapon that you wouldn't even expect to be on this list. Here we go. A channel staple. Hammer is B or C as it's slow and the DPS isn't great. Yeah, I get you. It's also just not a very commonly used melee weapon. Like, you don't see a lot of people using it out and about. Agreed. I also agree. I'm putting it B tier. And the reason I'm putting it higher than a C tier, like where we have the machete and the stone tools, is the noise that the hammer makes when you're bonking people. Awesome. Now, look at these two. We got the sisters out and about. Bone knife. Easy. God tier. Right. Calm down, chat. I know you're about to lose your shit with me. It is understandable that people would have negative views of the bone knife because it is not easy to get. You have to kill an animal, which is not the easiest thing to do. And depending on the animal, you may have to kill 2 of them to get the bone knife. Granted. Or, on the other hand, you could just go farm naked bodies on the beach and you got yourself a bone knife straight off the bat. So is it that hard to get? It's debatable. The reason the bone knife is god tier in my opinion is it is one of the most psychologically devastating weapons in this entire fucking game. There is no better way to make someone panic, maybe up to coffee can tier, maybe just below coffee can, like even leather. There is no better way to make someone panic than by going into a bone knife frenzy and absolutely unloading on some poor git, right, that did not see it coming. Nakeds, no chance, like butter, like literally like butter. Bone knife fucks them up. It can do so much damage. It is such a fast attack that they can't even have time to process. By the time you have drawn your bow to take a shot with an arrow, you can get 2 to 3 hits in with a bone knife. If you're ducking and weaving and just slapping and whacking, you are going to do some serious damage with that bone knife. That is why it is god tier. It is devastating. It is unexpected. They are fairly easy to come by if you know where to look. I'm in love with the bone knife. I feel bone knife is a very underappreciated weapon. I put it as such an iconic weapon as the DB. Papa, you forgot to mention that you can run with it. Oh, that's true. Oh yeah, you can run and attack at the same time. That's a very good point. God tier. Right, combat knife. God tier. Chad tier. I'm going to put it S tier. Okay. Now, I know you're sitting here and you're going, but what the fuck, Papa? What the fuck? I know you're screaming, right? But understand, okay? Understand. The reason I have put it here is, yes, it is blueprint, like you said, old fella. It's not default BP. You need to grind, and you need to grind a bit. You can find them. Finding a combat knife is awesome. Like, you find one of those in a red barrel, it's one of the best feelings ever. It's so sick, right? S tier all the way. But combat knife compared to the bone knife, when we look, they're very similar. Combat knife does more damage. It looks cooler. Spoon Kid's got a skin of it. Represent. Big up, love. It has every benefit that the bone knife does in terms of, like, you know, ferocity. Like, it does more damage and bits like that, but it just doesn't have the same sort of feel to it. You have to grind to get it, unless you're lucky enough to find one. You don't have to, like, triumph over the toughest enemies in the game, aka an animal. I feel the bone knife deserves to be higher, because if you're killing people in prim with that, like, it's crazy. It gives you the same rush as the knife, but does less damage, so it takes a little bit more skill and weaving. What are we gonna bother placing this? Because I think I fucked up. This shouldn't even be here. Longsword prim locked. I agree with that. I agree with that. Just to make a statement, right? We're coming down to the final three. Grub tier. That's God tier. Okay, A tier, just because of how you swipe it against heads. Okay, I think pretty consistent. I love you very high. A lot of love for the paddle, which is what I like to see. I know you're gonna hate me, but I'm actually putting it in A tier. Paddle is A tier because most of its benefits that people really use it for is farming at outposts. It's that high because the sound you make when you hit someone with it is absolutely disgusting. Like, it is so disgusting that it's got its own unique, like, slicey hit sound. Oh my god, it's so awesome. It's definitely A tier. It's just not something that I would consistently ever have on me. Like, I don't farm safe zones enough. I don't use kayaks enough. I don't do that. So in terms of combat, it is good, but it's thrown. And if you like some kind of Chad warrior throwing paddles about, then you are mad. But because it also costs like a blade to craft, it's a little more on the expensive side. So I think it's A. I think that's where it belongs. Salvaged cleaver, overrated as a weapon, way too slow. I 100% agree. But the problem I have with the cleaver is the way the weapon looks and sounds and everything. It feels like it should kill you in one hit. I'm putting it in D. Ever actually crafted a salvage cleaver? It's so easy to find them. Yeah, that's it. Even like, you end up with loads of cleavers when you just go in. So I put it in D because it just doesn't do as much as it feels it should. It's not the worst weapon ever, and like, it can do a lot of damage. Like, if you do hit someone with it, it's smacking. Like, it's absolutely smacking. But it's that swing. The hitbox is weird. Like, it's pretty hard to judge. All of you Sebi K fans, I see you tweaking in your seat, you're clucking, you're shaking, right? All of you guys, you need to understand we cannot take eco raiding into account. Okay? We just can't. Good speed out of high damage melees. Yeah, it's got good speed and it does do decent damage. B tier, it's too overrated. Yeah, B tier, I get that. I'm going B tier. Yeah, I just don't know. It's a good weapon. It's fun to have. I like it. It does good damage, but all in all, it's just a bit meh. This is the finale. Is it God tier? Is it the combo with the rock? Ooh, could it be? Is it S tier? Or is it, you know, undoubtedly prim locked? Unnecessary. Get out of here. What's going on? He's high. But yeah, no, all in all, it's fucking trash. It's prim locked as shit. Who uses torch? Well, there you go, chat. That was the primitive tier list. Fuck me.